Hello, Frank Lloyd Wright fans. Hello, fans of organic architecture, fans of modern design and architecture. Welcome to my YouTube video, the first of a four-part series on a series I like to call Renting Frank Lloyd Wright, which is about four Frank Lloyd Wright homes that my wife and I had the privilege of renting, staying a couple of nights in, 2 nights, 3 days in each, and would like to basically tour them with you through photos and try and give you some experience of what it's like to live in a Frank Lloyd Wright house. And I put the word live in quotes because, again, it was 2 nights, 3 days. But it's enough time to get a much better feel and understanding of Mr. Wright's architecture than just a 1 or 2 hour tour. So when I talk about Frank Lloyd Wright, I always like to start out by saying that he was the world's greatest architect of all time. I often hear him described as America's greatest architect or the greatest architect of the 20th century. And though both of those are true, I think we need to just come out and say it straight. He was the world's greatest architect of all time. We are talking about the Leonardo, the Michelangelo, the Beethoven, the Elvis, the Beatles of architects. And so with that said, I'm not going to bog you down too much in history and dates as much as I'd like to spend more time conveying to you, again, the experience of these homes, the beauty, the tranquility, the connection to nature, and tour you through the house and explain the architecture and the design and how it all is to connect you to nature, to reestablish your biorhythms, as Donna Penfield said, and to sort of create its own world of peace and tranquility. And so we'll talk about that as we go through the house. So just the basic facts here. The clients were Louis and Pauline Penfield. Lou Penfield was 6 feet 8 inches tall. And that, of course, will have huge significance in the design and to the whole story of this house. As we work our way through, we'll talk about that. It was a 2-story house, which is somewhat rare for Mr. Wright. I think he really really preferred 1-story houses because that way he could spread them out along the horizontal of the horizon line of the prairie and spread his houses out. But in this particular case, it was a 2-story house of about 1,730 square feet. Again, houses in the 1950s were smaller. Average sized homes were much smaller than they are today, but very functional and provided a great experience for living. At least we got to enjoy some of that. The house was completed in 1955. It uses a square grid planning module. All of Mr. Wright's houses were designed on a planning module, especially the Usonian homes, which is a term Mr. Wright gave for his the last part of his career from 1936 with the Jacobs House until his death in April of 1959. Mr. Wright designed Usonian homes. They were the best design he could give at the most reasonable low cost for his designs, not necessarily the lowest cost just in general. They weren't cheap houses. They were as low cost as Wright could conceive of them while still adhering to his organic design principles, connection to nature, destruction of the box. And so there was the elimination of basements, attics, downspouts, gutters, garages, all that which was insignificant to try and achieve the best design according to his principles too. Mr. Wright used to refer to his houses as thoroughbreds, and in that meant a simplicity of materials. The main materials of this house are concrete. Mr. Wright typically, if not always, used Cherokee red concrete floors in his houses and buildings. Wood, concrete block, which Mr. Wright said he wanted to raise that material up out of the gutter and use it. It was typically just a utilitarian kind of material, but it was inexpensive. It still is today somewhat, although of course the cost of materials today are changing so much. But concrete block, in this case painted glass, and then these masonite panels, I'm calling them masonite panels. I think I read that term somewhere that they were described. They're basically kind of an acrylic stucco kind of panel, almost like a piece of glass that was fitted in between the structural wood members of the building. And again, they had this kind of stucco sort of texture to them, kind of a cream color in this case. I'll point them out. And so the story goes that the Penfields visit Mr. Wright at Taliesin. And of course, Lou Penfield, being 6 feet 8 inches tall, asks Mr. Wright, "Can you design a house for someone like me?" To which Mr. Wright responded, "Yes, but we'll have to invent a machine to turn you sideways first." Because of course, Mr. Wright was all about the horizontal line, the relationship of parallel to the prairie horizon line. Mr. Wright was all about his homes and buildings being of human scale. But of course, for him, human scale was his height at about 5 feet 8.5. Mr. Wright's architecture always starts with the site. And of course, here we have the site amongst all this broccoli. We have the main road here. You come through a gate down the driveway to the house here. We have it's the Chagrin River here. Don't know how it's pronounced. This house is in Willoughby Hills, Ohio, which is about, I want to say, if I remember correctly, might be like 45 minutes or so east of Cleveland. But again, Mr. Wright and his clients, they always had the greatest sites. There was always a lot of acreage, obviously, nature was the emphasis. And so the combination of architecture and nature in this case, and in all of Wright's designs, he was the best at marrying the two. So again, here's the site. We have a deer here. We have wildlife. The river is down here. And again, you are the audience and nature is the stage. It is just this theatrical experience. I really enjoyed preparing these floor plans for these presentations. Tried to do it in the style of Mr. Wright's presentation drawings and for floor plans. He typically used pen and ink on trace paper. And so on the computer, I was able to kind of convey that. Again, 2-story house, you come to the carport here. Again, as Mr. Wright would say, we're not corralling horse and buggy anymore. The car isn't going anywhere. We just need protection and shelter overhead, which Mr. Wright always supported the roof structure here with a tool shed or a tool structure or a storage closet. Again, concrete block here. Come up some steps, come into the main entry here. You can drop off your groceries here in the workspace, which was Wright's term for the kitchen. You have a shop and laundry. You have a powder room here. And you have, Mr. Wright always had a central core of typically a utility closet, might be water heater, furnace, boiler, and then the fireplace, always at the heart of the home, always at the center of the home. Mr. Wright would always provide you a convenient coat closet. And then, of course, this open living dining space, concrete floor. Again, the grid module is expressed by joints in the concrete. And that, of course, extends out to the exterior, out to the terrace. You come up the stairs here, up here to the second floor where you have master bedroom, bath, and 2 more bedrooms. Not a whole lot of storage. Mr. Wright wanted you to pare down, to simplify your life, simplify your environment, to declutter. It was also, again, we're trying to save money, so we're not having large walk-in closets like we do today. We're trying to keep the square footage down, keep the cost down, which of course didn't end up always being the case, but Mr. Wright tried. Again, he's trying to give the best architecture at the most affordable price he could. We'll start the tour on the outside and we'll work our way around the house. Again, Mr. Wright always turned the back of the house to the street, meaning that you'd have smaller windows facing the street for privacy. Here's the carport again. Here's those masonite panels. Again, the structure, the module, the grid is expressed in the wood structure. Again, the back of the house kind of moving around. The kitchen area here, workspace, living, dining here, bedrooms on the second floor. Again, all on the module. Affording privacy here with a higher wall. Again, here's that living, dining, able to see straight through the house, but the built-in bench is behind this wall here, and so your head is about maybe here. So again, you have complete privacy from the street, and you'll, as we get around to the other side of the house, you'll have that view to nature. Mr. Wright would always have the vertical joints of the block flush with the block, and then he would rake out or score out the horizontal joints to emphasize the horizontal, parallel with the ground line, parallel with the horizon line of the prairie. Same thing with the flat roof. Now here's this other side of the house that faces nature, and here's where you open up the house to the view and to nature. Again, 12-foot high glass doors here in that living dining area. We have the planter, the concrete block, flat roof. Here was that coat closet area. Again, these masonite panels, the carport, the second story. Again, carport. Now, Mr. Wright grouped together these 4-inch square vertical wood posts to relate to the tall, narrow frame of 6'8" Mr. Penfield. So now here he's relating the architecture and the design specifically to the client. What we found, though, inside the house was also that these verticals mimicked the tree trunks and kind of related to all the tree trunks that you could see out through the windows. So I thought that there was that connection as well. Again, Mr. Wright's infamous Cherokee red concrete that he used in all of his buildings, all of at least his later buildings, his Usonian homes. Red concrete terrace here. You go up a few steps, enter the house here. Now, how did this slide get in here? Well, this was the typical house of the day. In fact, to some degree, it still is today. You have the garage, you have the stylized, profiled spindle column supports here. You have the applied decoration, gift wrapping the box. You have gutter downspout. You know that these shutters aren't functional because the width of this shutter isn't, even if you could close these, you wouldn't close off the entire window. So it's just decoration. You have the large picture window, which of course then, unless you close the curtains now, allows everybody on the street out here to see in. So you have no privacy. You're completely exposed. It's stylized. And it's just a complete contrast to what Mr. Wright was doing. The color palette, always of the site. These are the leaves that are at your feet, at the site, at the house. You have every color of the spectrum here: red, orange, yellow, green, almost blue, indigo, violet almost, purple. You have white, you have gray. Every color you could possibly need in your design is right at your feet. And Mr. Wright would oftentimes, if not always, try to bring those colors into the house, whether it was seat cushions, fabrics, textiles, curtains. That would become a part of the house, and again, part of that relating the house to the site, to nature. Back outside, here's that storage structure supporting the roof of the carport. Again, Mr. Wright has a concrete block, the planter here, which encapsulates this tree. And again, that connection of the house extending out and embracing nature, making nature a part of the design, a part of the house. We'll go up these few steps, we'll enter the doors here, and we'll pass the stairs and walk right into the living dining area. So again, here's that tall back wall that faces the street. You have privacy, but you still have light coming in, and of course your view of nature is here. You have another planter here. Again, the same materials inside as out. Mr. Wright once wrote that what's outside comes in, and what's inside can, and certainly does, go out. And so you have literally no separation between indoor and outdoor except the glass. Even the lights are the same inside as out. All the furniture designed by Mr. Wright, again, integrating everything. Organic architecture, one of the tenets of that style of organic architecture is part is to whole as whole is to part. And so here you have a complete synthesis of all the parts creating the whole and a relationship between everything. And if we move over here a little bit, built-in bench here, which oftentimes, if not always, would be storage underneath these seats. So now you still do have storage here. Again, emphasizing the view to nature. Nature is the stage, nature is the theater, you are the audience. Again, the ceiling structure, same as the outside. And again, that module is expressed horizontally, vertically, in the floor, in plan and elevation. And so you have this continuity, and you have that relationship in plan and elevation, part to whole. And again, when you sit on that built-in bench, this is your view. Just an extraordinary view of nature. I sat there for hours just being a spectator of the beauty through the windows. Again, you have the concrete terrace here, same Cherokee red. So again, that interior floor extends to the outside, and you feel a part of the outside. Again, here's a detail of this planter. Again, the concrete block inside, same as out. Concrete red Cherokee concrete floor inside, same as out. The wood frame, the lights, the same as out. You have a custom lamp here designed by Mr. Wright, again, following the module of the block, of the concrete block. Standing at that planter, looking back towards the front of the house, towards the front doors. Again, here's where we entered. Again, the concrete block, the fireplace, always the center of the home, always at the heart of the home. Here's the workspace or the kitchen. Again, privacy is afforded. Smaller windows facing the street. Here are those masonite panels, the wood frame, and again, what's inside is outside. There's no distinction, no barrier between the two. If you move over, here are the stairs to the second floor. And again, Mr. Wright removes the vertical risers between the stairs so that light and view can continue through. And you almost feel as if you float up these stairs. It really is an extraordinary experience. Again, at the base of those stairs, here are those treads, and you just float up to the second floor. Very minimal here, no blocking of light and view. And again, these vertical support posts mimicking the frame of 6 foot 8 inch tall Mr. Penfield. The balcony hallway here to the bedrooms. There's the concrete block again on the interior. The same color inside as out. Standing on that balcony, looking back at the stairs and these wood posts. Again, mimicking the tree trunks outside is kind of what I was able to see as a relationship to the outside as well. Piano hinges here for some storage. Wherever Wright could get storage, he got it. Custom lights here extend to the outside as well. One of the bedrooms, connection to nature, same materials throughout the entire house, same color for that continuity. Again, this whole house is an overall work of art. It's everything, again, relates to something else. One of the smaller bedrooms of the three in the middle, you can open the windows here, and that's on the half module. Again, Mr. Wright thought of bedrooms as just compartments for sleeping mainly, and studying, reading, your alone time, your privacy, but he really encouraged you to be in the living spaces with the family or to be outdoors. There's these built-in light fixtures again, same throughout the entire house. Master bedroom, big windows, connection to nature. There's these custom lamps Mr. Wright designed that appeared in many houses. I have one right here. Of course, it's a copy. So again, the architecture, the furniture, everything relates to the overall design. So in summary of this house and of Mr. Wright's architecture, Mr. Wright knew and understood that the main purpose of architecture is to provide shelter. And Mr. Wright conveyed that sense of shelter through large roof overhangs, typically. And you really did have this feeling of, if you've ever been under a tree when it's raining or just getting some shade, you stand near that tree trunk and those branches cantilever way out beyond you, and you just feel protected and sheltered. If you ever go to a park, you typically end up under a tree. You don't typically sit in the middle of the opening. People tend to sit around the perimeter under some shade, and you just do feel this protection, shelter, security. It's just a fascinating feeling. Of course, Mr. Wright was all about the love and respect for nature, and nature being the ultimate context within which all buildings exist. I found it, just as kind of a side note here, I found it interesting that a lot of the street names that Frank Lloyd Wright's buildings are on are nature-related street names. So I wrote down some here like Frogtown Road, Woodchuck Road, Chestnut Hill, Orchard Brook, Riverview, West Lake, Woodhaven, Forest Avenue, West Walnut Street, Springbrook, West Palo Verde Drive, Wisteria Way. I mean, it's amazing. In all of my travels around this country, I've been in over 100 Frank Lloyd Wright buildings over the last 30 years. I just took notice that a lot of his buildings and houses were on nature-related street names, which I found how appropriate is that. Supremely human, a humane architecture, and I think Mr. Wright was just the best at understanding the human being. Again, that sense of shelter, that sense of security, almost drawing from our cavemen instinct of security and shelter, protection. There's just, and the fireplace in the middle of the home. You put all of that together, and you just have this connection to sort of the basic needs of humanity. It's a tangible feeling that you get in his houses. It's just amazing. Mr. Wright used to say that architecture should be a grace to its site rather than a disgrace, and that the building should belong where you see it standing. And that's why when I pointed out that planter on the backside of the house taking in that tree, again, almost this sense of the house growing up out of the site where you see it standing. Mr. Wright was the best at that. These houses truly are alternate universes. It's all about possibility, beauty, privacy, and as Mr. Wright used to say, peace, space, comfort. When you pass through the gate at the driveway of these houses, of course, as an architect, I get super excited. And when you see that Frank Lloyd Wright house, it's so different than anything else ever built. And you know that you're in for one of the greatest experiences of your life. And there are no TVs in these houses, which is great because there don't need to be. This is a time for you to put the phone down, turn off the TV, get away from the craziness of the world, get back to nature. It really is an alternate universe. These houses are quiet. You just really can get away from it all. It's meditative. I highly recommend it. If you ever get a chance, stay in these houses because you won't forget the experience. These houses and all of Mr. Wright's architecture are complete works of art. And as I said, organic architecture, what does organic mean? Well, it partly means that part is to whole as whole is to part. There's a relationship of everything. Nothing's out of place. And they are works of art. And that's why, I think the houses may have ended up not being as inexpensive or as cost effective as what was touted. But we got to give Mr. Wright a break there. He is providing you genius design. And for the hundreds of families that were able to afford to build these houses, many of them lived into their 90s. And I think Mr. Wright's architecture had something to do with that. They were just, again, the furniture, the relationship of everything, the contiguous connection of part to whole and whole to part it's visible, it's palpable, and it's what makes it just truly unique. And when you go back to your own home, you're truly depressed because you miss that connection to nature. And we all, unfortunately, basically live in boxes with holes punched out of them for windows, disconnected to nature. No relationship from interior to exterior. And that's just what makes these houses truly unique. These houses are a part of the landscape and the environment, a connection, again, to the landscape with that continuity of materials. Again, when you have the same materials inside as out, when you have planters that extend from the inside to the outside, planters as part of the architecture, reaching out and embracing nature, making shrubs, trees, flowers an integral part of the architecture. That's what Mr. Wright was all about. And that was conveyed in all of his designs. Of course, these houses have guest books that you can sign. You can write your feelings, your thoughts in them. And I read many pages of these guest books. And I got to tell you, I mean, of course, everybody is it's nothing but lavish praise, as well it should be. What people said though about, how it was an experience none like none other that they've ever had. It was meditative, it was spiritual, it was religious almost, it was life changing. I mean, the way these people described their experience of staying in these houses is a testament to the design, to the success of the design. And that Mr. Wright's architecture, organic architecture, it is good, it is right, it is humane. It's you can't not feel it. And these people wrote about that in their guest book. I'm glad they did. It again, it is confirmation that this was, that his architecture, I think, was better. It's better than most of what we live in today. Again, there's this sense of the spiritual, the simplicity, I think, has a lot to do with that. Again, not only were these houses decluttered because there's no TVs, and yes, there's not the day-to-day stuff. You're not getting mail. There aren't children's toys, necessarily everywhere. I understand that. It's true. It's when you're staying there for a couple of days, you're a guest like at a hotel. But you can take that home, to your own life. I mean, my wife and I, we've decluttered our lives, our house as much as we can. Still have too much stuff. It's liberating, I promise you, to simplify your life and to be in an environment of simplicity. It really does affect you in a positive way. I highly recommend it. And then to end this first part of the 4-part series, I want to read to you part of a speech that Ralph Walker gave in the gold medal speech to Frank Lloyd Wright, upon which Wright accepted the gold medal award. And Ralph Walker said to Mr. Wright in this speech, "You design your buildings as if they were to take their place in a happier world, one of light, of grace, of gaiety, and for human beings who are not burdened with fear, for humans who live in a world where what seems possible is actually so, and where the pioneer concept of democracy seems a reality. All your life, you have denied the minimum and have reached for the stars. A free man in a free land. You have asked a drab society to compromise with you on the basis of your ideals." And with that, I will leave you. And until next time in the series, presentation number 2 will be the Palmer House in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Stay tuned for my next YouTube video on that. And until then, I bid you all bye-bye. See you soon.